Department of Truth, issue number 12. I feel like I missed this book, but I just got super busy with so much other stuff. I just had to keep pushing and pushing and pushing this book aside for a few weeks, but we're here to talk about it, and really fun. Is it my favorite issue? I don't think so. I like a lot of the stuff it's presenting, some cool revelations that I enjoy seeing, but at the same time, it's not the issue I would say is the selling point of this book. I think this is a really strong read, really solid story, but yeah, it's fine. So we open up, we see Wisconsin in 87. It's done in this like stylized format, like those old cartoons talking about the future and how bright everything looks, kind of Flintstone-y. We see Cole's mom is talking to this weird agent, and this guy's just like, this story's kind of important. I hate seeing Satanists running around. If your son's got stuff to say, I know you used to be a writer. Maybe you should talk to like the proper authorities about this stuff, like publishers or article or newsmen about this kind of thing. Could give you some cash to keep things going better. We never see the face of this guy that she's talking to, but she's like, this is all a lot to take in. I think I should talk to my husband when he gets home. And he's like, that's fine. I'm just telling you, a lot of weird stuff going on. Your kid should get the help he needs, and maybe telling your story is the right thing to do to make it make sense. So before this man leaves, Cole sees him. He's like, you're a liar. Like, I don't know, you're just a liar. I know your secret. And we see this devilized version of Hawk Harrison just looking down at this kid. He's like, all grown-ups are liars, dude. Sometimes they just don't know what they're lying about. Remember this theme because it'll come back in the end. So we cut back to the present day in the present story. We see Ruby's kind of talking with Cole, just like, you've been through a lot. It's getting kind of weird. Hawk kind of wants you to come back. I'm going to see what we're going to do with you, Cole, all over the place. Cole again is asking about her knowledge of this woman in red, but she's not willing to talk about it. So we'll move past it. Then we kind of get a briefing where we have Lee Harvey Oswald talking to Ruby, and they're just kind of like, okay, here's what we know about Black Hat, and we know enough about Martin Barker where we have this idea in our head. So he's this guy who's very shady. We don't know a lot about him, but he's kind of just like quiet on everything, and is just like born in the 60s. He's got no surviving family. It said that his father was Satan and his mother's the whore of Babylon on his birth certificate. But basically, he's this bad dude, and he's the founder of like Black Hat. But this is kind of like the briefing of what Black Hat is. So it's kind of like the anti-Google, and it's like this weird like site search engine kind of thing where if you find some information online, everything about that information suddenly becomes scrubbed and you can't find it anymore. But then it just leads on to like the next thing. It's like a continuing roll of paper, but the previous paper gets kind of burned away. So they use it to kind of describe like the reptilian people. So if somebody has this idea on like deep Twitter, they're talking about like maybe this guy's a reptilian. Suddenly that branches into something else that like, the deep state is breeding reptilians in Denver. It's like a secret building underground. Suddenly the information stops existing on like the reptilian people themselves, when the only information that exists online is the information of like these breeding stations to create these things. And then that branches into one thing, and then that branches into another thing. But if each branch that spreads the previous thing is no longer to be consumed, and it's basically this machine that is operating like 12 times faster than the way the Department of Truth is running. It's like what they can do in days takes months for the Department of Truth to do. It's a very interesting way to look at things. And I think that's incredibly smart and an interesting concept. It's just like, yeah, your bad guy is supposed to be this thing that's better than you in a lot of conceivable ways. So the fact that they're playing with that, I think it makes sense. I think it's kind of cool. I like it a lot. Black Hat, a great name because it's a very secret agent name. Like there's been, movies and stuff all about Black Hats and that kind of thing. Very cool. So we see that Harvey's like, okay, we should just like try to catch up. So let's take all the shit that happened in the 80s. We're kind of like cleaning the 70s and stuff now. Get the 80s, clean that shit up. Let's get it back on the case and just let's figure everything out. And we see Ruby's like, okay, we can do that. But I got one more thing. I think we should take Cole out of the doghouse because we could use him as bait to lure out Martin Barker because for some reason he's interested in Cole. Harvey's like, okay, let's do it. But we also see that the reason Cole went with Hawk was because Hawk requested him. He wanted to see him pretty much since Cole came to the agency, which is kind of interesting to see. So Hawk has been aware of this kid for a while. We cut back to Colorado. We see Hawk is on the phone with Cole. He's like, pack your things up. You're headed home. He's like, okay, let's do it. But then we see when Hawk hangs up the phone, he's talking to somebody in the shadows, and he turns around and he sees that sitting in a chair in his room is Martin Barker. And I'm just like, this is fascinating. I really like the introduction of Hawk. I think he's a really complex and fun character for this book because he kind of represents what America is, and that's just like antagonistic for no reason, been boisterous, loud, and pretty much just reckless in a lot of ways, but he's also very calculated and smart, and he knows his shit, but he doesn't present it sometimes, and he's like the perfect character to introduce in this big methodical world. I really like that. So Hawk is evil. He's working for Black Hat. Well, maybe not evil's the right word. He is working for the opponent. And, we see these black helicopters that come to pick them up, and Cole's just like, oh, yeah, they're not real. I gotcha. I understand all the situation going on. Which leads us to this very fantastical idea that Hawk is kind of like explaining to Cole on the ride about like these black helicopters, This is kind of just like, there's a lot to dig into here. I'm going to do my best to kind of cover it. So basically it's like the black helicopters represent like the weaponized version of the government and like the black locusts that swarm and like kill crops and everything. And basically like it was a thing that was created in the 70s to like show this like power and stuff. Like there's some like really interesting religious undertones in this issue too. They talk about like the Book of Revelations. They talk about the Whore of Babylon. Interesting stuff. So like these helicopters represent, like the locusts and all this stuff. We see a beautiful page where it's just like the locusts and helicopters with like the face of the Devil Man, which is kind of just like a person. And that leads into like this argument that Hawk is representing, like you young people don't really understand how messed up the 70s was. Like the 60s was this like this counterculture, sweeping colors and peace and love and everything, and that was the vibe. But the 70s, we had bombings and terrorism and like these freaky cults and serial killers. The president was an asshole. He stole money. He was a dangerous guy. Everybody was messed up in the 70s. It was a terrible time. And then slowly things started to change when Reagan came in and everything started to become bigger. And then we might jump into like another Cold War, and the Soviet Union collapsed, and then Bush Sr. and then the Clintons, and all this stuff just kept flowing in just to kind of like show you how messed up the time period was becoming. And then it's just like there's so much really weird stuff going on. And there's this idea that like, the locusts that we saw in the 70s represent this idea of like these government people in these black helicopters trying to check out these dead cows on a field. So I had this idea, what if we created like these actual black helicopters? What if that was a thing we did? And because of those helicopters, a lot of incidences happened around the world. Things like Waco, which is an interesting thing to throw in here. But you're just like, whoa, okay. It's like Ruby Ridge and Waco, these two things where people were killed. Hawk is saying like his idea for the helicopters, because of the way the world was messed up, instigates these kind of ideas being presented in these things. He's like, I wasn't there for any of that stuff, but I put my hand in it. And I got a lot of kids killed just because I wanted to show what the hell I could do here. And I did all that good stuff. And you know what? I'm tired, and I'm afraid of the future, and I've done a lot of bad stuff, and I did it because I met Mr. Barker, and he wanted me to help him. It's like, I guess this is it. That's when Cole's like, "You're Black Hat." Yes, I am, kid. This isn't going back to the Department of Truth. This helicopter. It's like, nope, this is going back to your home. And we realize that Cole is headed back to Milwaukee, and he's going to come face to face with the Star-Faced Man. That's really cool. Really good stuff. It's intense. It's gripping. It's emotional. It's taking this beautiful idea. I love when like Tynan just says, let's play around with like the themes of just like the American government just being like this big political powerhouse that just pushes everything and literally messes up the cataclysmic events of the world. It's insane. Hawk Harrison being a great character who's just going through so much crap in this book. I adore it. I love it. I love it so much. It's really fun to see. And headed back home where Cole's probably going to interact with his parents if they're still alive. I can't remember if they said that or not. Very exciting. Very exciting stuff. Just a really, really cool book. It's so fun. I feel like such an idiot for just like putting this on hold for a bit, but oh, it's great stuff. Just the idea of like, you know, the black helicopters and the locusts and all this stuff with Black Hat and their Google engine that can delete things. It's so cool and so fun. The beginning pages with that classic cartoon artwork. It's amazing. It's amazing. This book continues to be amazing. So, The Department of Truth, issue number 12, I am going to give an 8 out of 10. Now, thank you guys for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and I will catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, good luck.